In today's video, we are checking out the new ROLAND AIRA Compact series. This is a drum machine and bass synthesizer, this is a polyphonic synth, and here we have a new vocal processor. And if you connect these together, you get a really small battery-powered Dawless synth setup. Great for somebody just starting out in electronic music. And in today's video, I'm going to play some demos with these devices and also talk about what they can do, but also what they can't do, because there are some limitations. And a big thank you to ROLAND for sponsoring today's video.
I'm not even here now. I don't know where I went. But if you wish for it, I'll try and find my way back.
Just for a bit of size comparison, here I have a Volca, so you can see the difference. The Volca is a bit bigger, it's a bit thicker as well. This here is the T8, it's a drum machine, it can also do acid bass lines. The sounds are a mix of a 909 kick, there's some 808 sounds as well as some 606 sounds in here. Now this here is the J6. It's a synthesizer, 4-note polyphony. It has a really interesting little sequencer that can do chord sequencing with some variations. It's not something that I've seen before on a small synth like this. And then we have the E4, which is basically a very small vocal processor with one looper track as well. So you can do auto pitch, you can do harmonies, you can change the formats, you can turn it into a vocoder.
Underbara vinterland, var finns du väl nu? Än en gång ännu en sång, en saga som är slut.
You also have performance effects as well as one effect, which can be a reverb, a delay, an echo, or a chorus.
Band som bandas många gånger med band som bandas många gånger med
Now all of these devices are battery powered. There's a lithium-ion battery in here. According to ROLAND, you can get about 4.5 hours of use out of a fully loaded battery. I think that's about right. I've managed to get about 4 hours of use out of one of these. In terms of build quality, it's quite lightweight, but the plastic is nice, it doesn't budge. The knobs feel okay. I mean, they're very small, but they have a bit of resistance to them. Contrary to what some people might believe, the Volcas have actually quite good build quality, and I have a lot of people who tell me that they last a long time, that they don't really break. So the new Aira Compacts feel not as good as the Volca, but it's kind of close. The Rolands here does have one advantage over the Volcas in terms of physical build, and that is the buttons, which have a pretty nice feel to them, and as you can see, they do have a bit of travel as well. So those are similar to the Volca buttons up here, but much better than the touch interface, the touch keyboard that is on the Volcas. In terms of I/O, they all share the same, so we have sync in and out. This lets you sync up one of these to, say, a Volca or a pocket operator if you want to. And on the back we have MIDI in and out on small TRS style connectors, and it's very simple to hook them all up and mix the audio. So you take MIDI out here on the first device into MIDI in here on the second, and MIDI out into MIDI in. So now when I hit play on the drum machine, the synth follows. And you can also set it so that it changes patterns. So these two devices have patterns, this one doesn't. So you can set it so that when you change patterns on this one, it changes on this one. Or you could turn that off, which I have actually done. Now routing the audio is very simple. We take the output here into the input here, and out from the second device into the one that we want to record from. So we basically have the audio going from this device to this device to this device. And it's a very nice way. We could add a Volca here, for example, take the audio out in here. I think that this is one of the better design decisions of these synths, because it's very easy to create a small Dawless synth setup. And not to forget, with each of these devices you get a pretty long USB-C to A cable, which you can use to charge the device, but also transmit audio over USB to your computer or your smartphone. And the USB can be used not only for audio, but for MIDI as well. So what is the J6? Well, it's a 4-note polyphony digital synthesizer based on ACB technology and the Juno 60. And its most unique feature is the chord sequencer, which is kinda neat. You can play the synth from its keyboard. But you can also turn on the chord mode. And there's different genres of chords that you can change between, and you can also turn on what I would call a sort of arpeggiator that has different styles and different variations of those styles. The way the chord sequence works is this: you press a step in the sequence, and if you are not in chord mode, you can put down multiple notes for a chord, or you can enable chord and just put down one note. So let's go up, you have octave up and down here, and go to the second step. So now we have 4 chords, and if we turn on variation, or the arpeggiator as I would say, it plays back the chords with the set variation. But the cool thing is we can actually change the variation per step here in the sequence. So let's change the variation here on the different steps. I'm just gonna pick something here at random. What you heard there was the ARP, or variation, changing per step. And this is actually something I haven't seen on many small synthesizers. So the sequencer is built around recording chords. That is what it's intended for. You can't really record like an intricate melody into it or something. So it's meant for recording chords and playing them back using the arpeggiator and the chord mode. And I think it's interesting. In terms of sounds, we have 64 presets. So there's 64 presets, but not that much that you can do with them. You have a filter. If you hold shift, you gain access to resonance. There's also control over the envelope, so the release. And attack. We have a delay and reverb. And you can change the delay time and the reverb time. You can also select between multiple patterns, so you have 64 patterns in total. Currently there is no pattern chaining or song mode. This is something that I think these two devices really need, so I hope that Roland can add this. But that's about it for the J6. It's basically a preset player, and that is its biggest limitation, that you don't have any more advanced sound shaping tools. There's also no randomizer functionality like on the Korg Volca FM2, which I would have loved to see on this one. So those were some limitations. What are some positives? Well, it has a great battery life. It sounds good even though it's basically a preset player. And most importantly, it has good connectivity. It's very easy to use, so if you're building a small Dawless setup, especially if you're a beginner or just want something simple, then this is actually not that bad. Now, another thing that I just learned is that you can use these devices as sequencers for external gear as well. So you could use the J6 to sequence external gear using the chord sequencer. Now, next up, let's talk about the T8 drum machine. Now, the T8 has a bit more going for it. It has 6 rhythm tracks, so we have bass drum, snare drum, we have hand clap and tom, closed hi-hat and open hi-hat, as well as a bass track with more dedicated controls for the sound. You also have the same reverb and delay sense as on this device, but there's also side chaining, there's also overdrive, so there's a bit more going on here, and I think that it delivers a pretty fat acid style sound. And something that I appreciate is that we can have a pattern running. And we can trigger a fill pattern. And then it reverts back to whatever pattern you were just playing. So how do you use the T8? Well, you can press pattern here, select between different patterns, select one. We can hit shift and then we can clear either just the instrument that you have selected or all of it. So let's clear all of it. And let's go to the bass drum. Let's put down some steps. We can change the decay of the kick drum. We can also change the tuning of the kick drum. We can also add accents, so press accent here, and there's different accents for the bass and for the drums. Let's add a snare. Some closed hi-hats. You can change the probability by holding down a step. You can change the probability on a few steps. We can also introduce different sub-steps. So basically like ratcheting and stuff like that. So you basically hold down closed hi-hat, a step. Let's add some hand claps and toms, and we have tuning control for them as well. Open hi-hat. Now something that I always find handy on small synths is randomization. So here we actually can randomize the rhythm and the bass separately. So on this device there's no randomization. I would have wished that they had that for the sounds on this device, but on this device it's not for the sounds but for the pattern. So if we hit shift and random bass, we get something. And it might not sound great, but let's do it again. So that was a randomized bass line. Now let's create our own. So we select the bass track and then we hit shift and pattern clear instrument. So now there's no bass line. Now we can turn on keyboard mode. Now let's press here for last and you can see B16. So we can have 32 steps for the bass line and 32 step max for the drums or rhythm section, but those are independent, so you can have a shorter bass line sequence. So you can live record into it, but you can also program it, so let's clear it again. So if we turn off keyboard, we're in bass, put down a step, hold it, now we can set whatever note we want. And we can also tie it to other notes. So here I put down a couple of different notes and I've tied some of them together. Now it's a good time to note that there's no parameter automation recording into the sequencer. This is something that I'm sorely missing. It would have been really nice to be able to record, say, the cutoff and resonance changes into the sequencer. Alas, it's not here. Maybe they can add it in an update. Now let's quickly go into the menu here, menu, and copy. So you can copy either the rhythm section or the bass or all of it. You can select copy, enter. We're in number 6. Let's copy it to number 7, enter. Going to pattern, select 7. And here, let's make a variation with some sort of build-up. So let's put down a few steps like this. And we select fill, pattern, and now we select number 7. So let's see here, it should be this one, I think. And by pressing shift and delay or reverb here, we can set the sends for the individual tracks. So shift, delay, bass drum, and we can just increase it if we want to increase the send from the bass drum to the delay. And in the menu system you can also set up sidechaining. You can also add some overdrive to the individual sounds if that's something you want. There's also a few sound settings hidden here under the menu. You can, for example, change the hand clap to a second tom if that's something you'd like. You can also change the sounds a little bit from the menu, but not a lot, which brings me to the limitations. So the first limitations was when I used it with the J6. Basically, this is equivalent to 64 steps, the entire sequence. So if I make an entire sequence here and I use the bass line, it's only 32 steps, so it doesn't line up. So you basically have to use 2 different patterns to get the equivalent length. Now they could have gone around this by introducing some ability to change the speed, the playback speed of the bass. Now you can set it to triplets, but there's no other setting as of now. Another limitation is the lack of pattern chaining. This is something that I really want to see. Another clear limitation is, of course, that it sounds the way it sounds, and you can't do a ton with the sounds. So if this is not a sound that you're looking for, don't expect to be able to change it up a ton, because you can't. Also, there's no parameter automation on this device or on this device. Well, you kind of have it on this device because you can automate the variation, the arpeggiator, but on this device there's no real automation that you can record into the sequencer except the sub-steps. You can have different velocities, for example, you have accents and stuff like this, but there's no way to record parameter changes into the sequencer, and this is something that I would have loved because it would have made it even more usable. Now in terms of positives, first and foremost, it's super easy to use, it's very immediate, it's a great beginner drum machine. If you're just starting out, you want to build a little Dawless setup, this is very easy to get going with. It doesn't have a ton of features, and that's kind of the point. It's meant to be entry level, it's meant to be easy and accessible. The battery life on it is really good, and most importantly, it slaps. It sounds really good. It has a really nice sound to it for its size, packs a punch, and I think that Roland's ACB technology is among the absolute best when it comes to reproducing these classic drum sounds. Next up is the Volcal Processor, the E4, and I'll take a little bit of a different approach here because I've never used a vocal processor like this before. I have nothing like this in my studio. I have very little experience with vocoders and processing my vocals live with effects in this sort of way. So here's just some cheesy examples.
Weird synthesizers.
So here we have a mic input and we have sensitivity here. We can set the gain and we have a little peak meter that starts to glow if we distort the sound. We have a noise gate, so you can probably hear it going on and off a little bit now. We also have auto pitch that you can turn on and off. You can also have the auto pitch follow keys from an external keyboard, which is really nice when you use the vocoder. And we also have pitch, so we can pitch up the sound or down one octave. Down, 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 down. We have control over performance, so we can make the voice brighter and darker.
Down here it's pretty nice, and then we can add some reverb, like, hello.
Or you could go really bright like this. It's kinda cool.
Underbara vinterland, var finns du väl nu? Än en gång ännu en sång, en saga som är slut.
Then we have the harmony button that lets you add a harmony, basically additional voices, and we have different settings here. I like some coffee with my fifths.
And then we have a vocoder. We can change the carrier from saw to square, which is kind of nice.
And then we have the scatter effects, which are basically performance effects that you can switch between while you are singing.
Tungsint, jag driver jag fram som ett band som bandas för många gånger med samma trans. Tungsint, jag driver ett band som bandas för många gånger med tungsint. Jag driver ett band som bandas för många gånger med tungsint. Jag driver ett band som bandas för många gånger med tungsint.
And there's also not just reverb, there's also echo, there's delay, I think there's a chorus as well. And we also have sync, in and out, in mix and out, volume, just like on the others, power on and off, and USB, as well as MIDI in and out. So that way you can easily sync it up. And another cool thing that I just learned with the E4 is that you can actually use the USB to send audio to it. So you don't have to use the mic input to process audio using it. You could go with USB audio as well, which seems kind of nice. I don't personally use a vocal processor in any of my setups, but I can see the appeal. I'm not the best at judging this device. All I can say is that it's easy to use, it's very straightforward. Maybe having just the one looper track is too little for some of you that are more advanced users, but if you're new to vocal processors like I am, then this is a really nice way to dip your toe into that world of vocal processing, especially playing keys on a synthesizer and having this follow the pitch was actually a lot of fun. Maybe the novelty will wear off, but it's a fun thing to explore nevertheless. Here's some final thoughts. The Aira Compacts format makes me think of the Mini Jam collection that came out several years ago. Tiny devices meant to be easily connected to one another and integrated with other small synths for a portable Dawless jamming setup. And where the mini jams failed due to poor build quality and just not sounding that good, the Aira Compacts are well made and they do sound good. They do have clear limitations though, they don't offer much in terms of sound design, but I think you already know if this is a product range aimed at you or not. Do you want a tiny Dawless setup that sounds large? If so, one or more Aira Compacts might be right for you. If you don't like tiny synths and you want more sound shaping possibilities, then obviously this is the totally wrong thing for you. And personally, I like the chord sequencer on the J6, it's kind of fun, but even more so I like the T8 because it's just a truly portable drum machine that works. It does what it's supposed to do and it's very simple and easy to use. But needless to say, there is fierce competition from other brands in this price segment, so do your research and see what fits you the best. And as always, a big thank you from me to you for watching today's video and a big thank you to Roland for sponsoring it. Have a great day.